All right, today we're getting into part three of how to complete your manuscript. I'm taking you from the beginning to the end of completing your book. This is a 5-part series, and you can watch videos 1 and 2, which cover plotting here. Today, we're going to talk about probably the hardest part of writing your book, finishing the rough draft. So, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to do it. And you can get the full how to write your book checklist on the free tier of my Patreon, which I'll leave a link in the description. Many people set out to write a book, but very few actually finish one. And even fewer of them go on to publish it. If you're passionate about finishing your story, you don't have to be another statistic. You can be someone that actually finishes their book. If you follow these 4 steps on how to finish your rough draft, this will get you a little bit closer to that finished published novel. Just like with any goal that you set, you want to have a deadline. This will be the first part of writing your rough draft. Why do you need a deadline, you might ask? Because studies have shown that when you are given a realistic deadline, you are far more likely to accomplish the task than when you don't. So, on that, don't give yourself just any old deadline. It needs to be an attainable deadline with smaller goalposts in between so you can make sure you're staying on schedule. So let's say you want to write an 80K word novel, which is about 80 to 85 is about the average length of a novel. You're going to break that goal up into smaller chunks that you're going to set through a deadline. You're going to break that number up into smaller chunks and you're going to want to hit the numbers. So you're going to hit 20K, 40K, 60K, and then 80K. And you can break it up as big or small as you would like. I find that the smaller you break it up, the more likely you're going to hit goalposts. What is great about the smaller goalposts, aside from making sure you're staying on track to get to that 80K or whatever number it is that it helps keep you feeling accomplished and it keeps you motivated. When you're able to hit these smaller goalposts, you're like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm getting work done. And you're going to be more motivated to stay on top of it. And on the flip side, if you find that you are not hitting those goalposts, don't get discouraged. Just know that that goal is not attainable for you yet, and that you just need to set a smaller goal or give yourself more time to complete your novel. Part of the journey of writing is learning about yourself and what works for you with your schedule, your life, and your brain. So, if there's anyone that tells you that you have to plot a certain way or pants a certain way or write your rough draft a certain way, it's not good advice because everyone is different. Everyone's brain works differently. But what is good about getting advice from other authors is that you could learn tips and tricks that actually work really great for your brain as well. So, a big bit of advice here. If you're like me and you tend to be overly ambitious with your goals, give yourself a decent cushion. Extend your goal by at least 20%. For example, if you think you can write your book in 90 days, set the goal for 108 days instead. That's a very literal example of the 20%. You could make it 110 days. But the idea is that if you think you can hit a goal at a certain time, give yourself more time to accomplish it. Once you don't get disappointed if you don't make those goals. But two, you also allow for things to happen in life that are going to slow you down, the unexpected. And if you find that you're writing faster than your goals, that's even better. That's going to get you super motivated and give you plenty of time. Now, don't change that goalpost just because you're writing faster at the moment, because something could happen, it slows you down, and you'll be glad you still had it set for a different date. But if you finish the goal before your deadline, you're doing awesome. Bonus points if you can find someone to help hold you accountable to these deadlines, that's going to help you be even more motivated. So, this could be a family member, friends, or writing buddies, but having accountability partners can also help. Tip 2 for finishing your rough draft: establish a writing routine. Goals are all well and dandy, but if you don't have routine and you don't carve out time to actually write, you're not going to hit those goals. Books don't write themselves, and those goalposts will pass you by and you'll have nothing to show for it. Now, you've probably heard the advice that you need to write every single day. This is one that I hear a lot in the writing community. However, I would challenge that and say that it's very unhealthy to write every single day. It's also unrealistic. I think the heart of this advice, a lot of the times, that is not expressed is that you just want to make sure that you're writing more days than not. I recommend trying to write in some capacity 5 days of the week. So when you're writing your rough drafts, it's literally going to be putting words on a page. But sometimes it also just looks like plotting or brainstorming or editing. I always recommend having at least one day off from writing to help reset your brain. Going every day without a break is not healthy, but you do want to be writing as much as you can while maintaining a work life balance. And when you sit down to write, especially when you're first starting out, you don't need to accomplish a lot. You don't need to be sitting down and writing 10,000 words a day, not even 2,000 words. If you write at least 50 words a day, that is still progress and you're still going to get somewhere. And odds are, if you can get those 50 words out and you don't have any interruptions, you'll probably get yourself into a flow and you'll be able to write more. But I have found for myself, if I set a high goal and I need to sit down and hit that high goal, it seems a lot more intimidating and it's harder for me to get into work mode because I'm intimidated by that big number. But if I give myself a smaller number, especially when was first starting out trying to be serious with writing, it was easier to hit that small 50 words. And then once I was in the groove, I wrote more. And on those days when you just don't want to write and you're tired, you got the 50 words, you can check that off your list and you're done. And you can still feel good that you got something done. Tip three, follow the outline. So if you're a pantser, this doesn't really pertain to you. But if you're a plotter like I am, or if you followed the first two videos where I really talked about plotting, this really helps for me. Because by this point, once I have everything plotted, I've sat on it, I've thought about it, I've brainstormed it, and I really, for the most part, am not going to change anything. There are sometimes exceptions. For the most part, though, I'm going to follow my out. This is one of the reasons that I love having an outline because when I get to the writing portion, I can write a lot faster because I'm more concerned about the words on the page and how I'm setting the scene, how the characters are coming across, versus me also trying to think about where the story's going and what needs to be in the scene. I already have that in my outline. So I know, hey, this stuff's going to be in the scene that I'm going to hit on. And I really just have to worry about bringing it to life. So, one common sort of joke in the writing community is that characters go off script and do what they want, creating a lot of headaches for authors because the story is now going in a direction they weren't planning and they've got to redo a bunch of plotting or their ideas. If this happens to you and you're excited about the new direction, full sail ahead. If you're not necessarily excited about it and you're like, oh, this is gonna be a lot of work. Is this right? What I say is back it up and get back to your outline. So if you did a good job outlining and figuring out your character motivations and who your character is, I find that this happens sometimes because the scene just wasn't set correctly. So your character doesn't react in the way you need them to get the story in the direction you want. So we need to go back is reset the scene and figure out what tweaks need to be made for the character to make the decisions you want them to do and put them on track for the story. Now, if you do find that your characters are going off script and you like that direction you're going in, you're going to pause here and if you have an outline, pause here and adjust your outline for the new changes. So that way when you get back to writing, you don't have to really think about it again and you can just get back to writing. And my last tip and the most important tip for writing your rough draft, don't look back. This is the most important advice I could give you. If you don't finish a story, there'll be nothing to edit later. So, your first draft is going to be terrible. How experienced of a writer you are will determine how terrible it is, but it's going to be bad nonetheless. It's not going to be perfect at the gate. You're still going to have to do lots of editing. So, the problem here is when you're writing your rough draft, if you get caught up in how bad your writing is and you start fretting about it or you want to keep going back and doing like line edits, you're going to waste your time. And I've seen a lot of writers get stuck in this loop of writing and going back and editing and writing some, going back and editing, and they never make it to the end of the novel. Now, as with all advice, there's always a caveat. Some people do thrive this way, but I will tell you that the majority of people do not thrive this way when writing. So my big advice to you, unless you're one of those rare birds, is start your rough draft right to the end, all the way to the end, before you even try to edit. Remember, you can't edit words that are not there. And once you finish your rough draft, you have made it from the beginning to the end. Your writing is terrible, but you don't care. You're excited because you have finished writing a novel. at least the rough draft. We're going to get into the first stage of editing, which is developmental edits. And I'm going to cover that in my next video. So if you don't want to miss it, subscribe. And if you like my work, like this video, please leave a comment. It helps small creators like myself get noticed. And remember, if you want the free PDF checklist for writing your book, check out the link to my Patreon.